Welcome back to live broadcast, live from the APC. We are still here, and it's what, 152, only one result in Janjam. It seems like the chairman will be coming in very soon. Hope this time we have more results coming in. Like I said, it's going to be a long day and night, and I'm sure by Sunday, early hours Sunday, we will be here. But it seems like Ablai, we're going to be a long time. The IEC this time are being cautious. They're taking their time, even though it's worried, but it seems like the IEC is taking their time, and some of us are sleeping.
Yeah, I think what we are seeing, the delay in the announcement of the result, as there is, result of some of the event last few weeks. If you look at CA's case to the High Court, in which they obtained judgment, Fatou, which brought into question credibility issues and competence regarding APC. And if you go back to 2016 as well, the results were initially announced, revised, and left people wondering, in terms of the accuracy of the results. So perhaps the APC is learning from those mistakes. Perhaps the credibility sprung up over the last few weeks, kind of influence them in a way that they make sure that they are not lost, that any results that are announced are final and a true reflection of the numbers that they received. So it's look we had expected. The polls in the early of Saturday morning. I think we had expected, but by we should have had an indication as to we in relation to the results. But here at almost 2 o'clock in the morning, still on as to there's a lot of speculation, a lot of unconfirmed reports, but
Ablai, see, here and the IEC have no accounts, but the camps, they have an idea what they're pulling, because their agents have their returns, and it seems like they look like a good standing, because they're making the noise. I'm not making any investments here, but I'm saying, when you talk to both camps from inside, it looks like they look very pretty. ESA.
They must have an idea, because all of them are agents. They are agents in all the polling, especially the two parties, UDP and PP.
They
must have an idea. That is why people who are just concerned about IC not announcing, and even all of the parties, people not. Of course, they have an idea. All parties have an idea what is going on. They're trying to calm the situation for their supporters. People call and there, and you don't want to tell people what is happening, but they must have an idea how well they are performing. Even that is late to finish by now, they must have an idea. These things can be fast counting them. So what happened in the center is just a matter of how do you call it? Bring together the results that you have different polling stations in a particular constituency. But you must have an idea, because let's say if a polling station you score this number, you score in another polling. So let's say in a constituency you have, let's say, 7 polling or 6 polling stations. Each of those polling stations have their agents. So they'll to transmit you the results in that polling station, and then you're able to quickly put together, within 15 minutes you should be able to put together what you score in that particular constituency. So I think it's they must have an idea what is, and also they cannot to say anything because the official announcements are not done by the IEC yet. Also the social media, what is happening, people coming up with results left and center. So I think it's all contributing to
I think you guys check. I'm being told we are badly. I don't know whether it's the internet or sound. Can you guys start that, please? That's what I'm here. Lamin, what are you getting from your sources, both camps?
Well, like you said, of course, I agreed with you. The main stakeholders in this election, the political parties, and they have a fair idea of how the results, eventual results, the final results look like. Now, what I have at the moment, the NPP has put on a very huge lead.
Yes.
Which I think will be almost certainly impossible for the UDP to catch up.
Yeah.
Because looking at what is left in the West Coast region, I've been told Brikama North, Brikama South, both are, heavily populated. Both have, heavily populated voter population. But if you look at the lead, the margin is, even if those constituencies should all go UDP's way heavily, which is not likely, in fact, it will look like the NPP is on course to win the elections. I don't mind, if I'm been criticized or been blasted for making it too early. But that is what we are getting from unofficial sources. And looking at, in fact, even the NPP had come out with, unofficially, they've come out with their own tabulation of results. They did not bother with the constituencies where they lost, but they pick on the ones where they won. And even if you put that together, if that is confirmed, that has given them a lead that you can almost certainly say is unassailable. However, nobody should take this to be the final declaration of results from Lamin Cham or Kerr Fatou. It is the mandate only of the IEC to validate these results. That is why we are still here. That is why the parties are not, those who believe they have won are not celebrating. That is why those who are trailing did not call it quits, because they officially have to wait until everything is properly analyzed and properly told to the nation. So yes, you're right. Fairly well, both parties, the top contenders, know how the trend is going, and it looks like almost certainly the NPP has put on an unassailable lead. That's the feeling I got.
xam nga nag soo nekkee si liggéey bi comme instant bi élection bi ñoom annoncé ko mais yow xam nga di nga am ay source fu nekk si parti yu mag yëpp mais luñ nekk di jot instant bi dafa mel ni incumbent bi NPP seen numéro yi conforme guñ ko mais seen numéro yi ñoom ñoo gën a confortable daal instant buñ toll.
waaw xam nga parti au pouvoir la et puis xam nga li ñuy wax rek amoon na benn coalition boo xam ne ñoom tegoon nañ ko mu taxaw après nag am na li ñu def ci coalition boobu mooy de def na moyens yu bari waaw xam nga day jafe soo xoolee suñu dëkk yi di Afrique waaw président am benn mandat xaw ma ndax seetlu ngeen ko wala déet dafay day jafe trop dañ ko joxaat beneen mandat même ñun Sénégal buñ ko dundee 2019 waxoon lañ la ñëpp fi lay yem mais dañ doon wax ne histoire du Sénégal loolu musta am président bu ñëw def benn mandat rek dem mais loolu yëpp nag du ñun ñooy joxe résultat mais information yi ñuy jot la maanaam dañuy sukkandiku ci information yoo xam ne mi ngi bàyyeekoo ci coalition yi fi nekk UDP ak NPP li ma la waxoon rek ñoom ñaar mais dina serré man loolu laa jàpp loolu laa jàpp waaw dina serré du yomb comme du am yenn score yi nga xam ne day bari te ak ku mënta gagné waaw jàppal ne du mën a yor Banjul du mën a yor Gambie moom kese parce que xam nga maa ngi la doon wax sànq ne la bu nekkoon na yéen seen kii am na deuxième tour da ngeen di dem deuxième tour parce que kenn du ci am 50%. maanaam kenn du ci am 50%. xam nga léegi yow boo jëlee ci li ñu voté yëpp. nga jël nga ne 30% nga am wala 40% nga am. pour nga téye réew. waaw du yomb.
waaw mais numéro yu ñëkkat yi ñëwagum bu continuer nii mun na mut loolu.
mën na mat 50%.
mën na ko mat
waaw léegi comme li ma doon wax ci anglais. ma tenkal ko ci wolof pour nga gën a on comprendre. ok léegi fi mu ne ni ñaari parti yi mooy UDP ak NPP fi mu ne ni ñoom ci seen headquarters. daanaka ñoom xam nañ.
yu ñëwagum
lim yi ñëwagum. léegi lim yi des même su fekkee ne sax yooyu yëpp dem na ci UDP ñi NPP luñ jot a am.
mun na ko break nag.
mun na ko wàññi. mais fooguma ne dina ko.
kañ mun na lu des ba tey ëpp na fi it's around 50%.
waaw moom lay wax.
mënu ko li ma ci ma xalaat.
xam nga tey jii boo jëlee li Ousseynou Daba di am. li kii am. Fall Essa Fall. boo jëlee lu Mama Kandeh am. boo jëlee lu Jammeh am. boo jëlee lu Khalifa Sall am. nga boole leen. day fekk ne ñoom boo leen totalisé dañuy am 70% wala 80 wala au moins 60%.
mais loolu mooy problème bi.
waaw
instant bi lu nekk di xew.
voilà
nekkuñ di pool. par exemple comme analyse yi yëpp ñun lañ xool mooy Mama Kandeh li muy war a jël nekkul di jël loolu.
waaw mais
booy nekkul di jël loolu. yeneen parti yëpp
li may bëgg expliquer
mooy li nga wax yow da nga wax ne soo boolee carte opposition yëpp.
waaw
moo xëy ne da nga foog ne soo leen dajalee ba dugal leen benn baskat.
waaw
moo war a ëpp lu kii am dafa mel ni seen vote dafa tasaare rek.
voilà dafa tasaare.
waaw li ma la wax ni léegi li muy def ni léegi. malheureusement. Mama Kandeh ak ñeneen ñi des. ñooñu nekkuñ di jëli façon yoo xam ne mën na tax ba nga foog ne ñoom seen bos. dina tax.
est-ce que foog nga ne Adama Barrow mën na am 50%.
lu ko ëppal su fekkee ne nu moo demee nii. ci man sama gis. dina ëppal 50. 50 et quelque.
50%. 50.
waaw dina ko mën a am.
dina ko mën a am.
waaw waaw.
I doubt that. man li ma gëm. gëmuma mu am 50%. man gëwuma ko waaye loolu yëpp man gëwuma ne dina mën a am 50% wala bu ko ci am tamit ci lay yem. kon jàppal ne bu ko mënut a am wala ci lay yem mooy la ca des. réew laa wax yor réew man fi may waxee. waaw mooy yor réew xam nga tey jii. nga amoo ci moo tax deuxième tour lu tax ñuy wut deuxième tour.
boobu nag dafa amul ñuy suñu.
waaw amul xam naa ne amul loolu laa wax ma ne lu tax ñuy wut deuxième tour. pour nga am benn majorité bu la may yow nga yor réew confortablement moo tax ñu ne. boo amul 50%. dañuy demaat ñu xool ci yéen ñaar ku jël premier ku jël deuxième ngeen ànd dem. après am moom beneen campagne ngeen dem loolu buñ koy wut. te pour nga am benn majorité boo amee 50 virgule ñu ne yow yaa gagné. loolu moo lay may loolu la tax ma ne. ak ku mënta wii élection est-ce que pour stabilité ak dalu réew mi. benn candidat rek mën na wax ne moom mooy yor du ci boole keneen wala du ci boole ñeneen waaye moom ak i nitam dong ñoom ñooy taxaw jël lépp aakimoo ko te du ci boole keneen. loolu foofu laay wax foofu laay waxee.
What he's trying to say is that he didn't think that an overall, overwhelming, dominant winner will emerge from these elections. He's saying that perhaps what's going to happen is because we do not have absolute majority, we may end up electing somebody who might not have the majority of the votes.
Just like 2016.
Just like what happened in 2016.
When he had 43%. When he had 43%.
Adama did not get the majority.
Yes.
Why? Because the rule said first past the post. Adama was elected simple majority.
Yeah.
In 2016,
Yes.
Clinton had the popular vote.
Yes, he got the popular
Al Gore had the popular vote.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Our system here right now,
It
even if
says
Barrow
1%
wins with 1% or he even wins with 20%, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So
He's
whoever does. So I understand in terms of the legitimacy.
Yes.
Proportional representation. Yeah.
The legitimacy.
Yeah.
But at the moment, that is secondary.
Absolutely.
What is primary for all these candidates?
Is to
Is
win
to
the
win.
numbers.
Yeah.
So I think that discussion about the legitimacy of who is going to govern is an over debate. And I think whoever does, if the numbers reflect what we're hearing unconfirmed, Barrow couldn't care less about that.
No.
At the moment, all he cares about, and the rest of the
It's
NPP
just
population,
getting the mandate.
is that they've been able to pull the cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
Because none of us thought that, because the predictions were that this was going to be the closest race in the history of the Gambia.
Yeah.
But as it stands, it may be once again the power of incumbency.
Yeah.
Don't you think also, I mean, this could bring back the debate of the new constitution?
Yes.
The draft constitution that is in coma. Do we want to have absolute majority, I mean, in place to address that issue of legitimacy that you talk about?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, I mean, because it's an official, is Barrow...
I see the IEC officials. Oh, no, not yet.
So if Barrow, for instance, is declared winner,
the observers come.
if he's declared winner...
So you were maybe right, they are coming.
Yes, I think we are about to have another announcement.
Let's hope it's a badge.
Let's hope it's a badge.
And not just a single one.
It's not a single one.
So if he's announced as the winner, will he be interested in bringing that? Or is he going to bang on this to say, simple majority still favors me, let me just maintain that?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on how quenched his thirst for power is in the next 5 years. If in the next 5 years,
people are telling you Barrow for 2026.
Well, I don't know. That may not be Mr. Barrow's own interest, but then you never know.
Yeah.
You never know, because
but I know what you are saying. He will only consider those good, what we thought to be bad, very good laws. He will only consider them when he is not interested in power, because obviously one of the reasons he opposed them was that they are going to probably bring his leadership to to a halt. That's why he was not comfortable with them. If he had not had any interest to pursue another term, he probably would have accepted and maybe even allow those laws to come in place. But the moment he had an ambition to go ahead, that's why he found himself difficult and uncomfortable with those proposed transitional, and justice and all the transitional programs.
Just to say this, the danger we'll be doing if Barrow wins this election is like he's going to be sworn in without term limit.
Yes,
how about I mean small of Barrow no, but yeah, so go Barrow suware gagné. Ñu war ko sworn in like mu wara nek at president dafa nek president without term limit. Bu ñam term limit ci constitution bi da nga gis ne suñu isi wat a new constitution to replace the 1997 constitution, then the issue of retroactivity dafa ñëwaat. So dafa ne suma count bi suma term bi ma win ni again bobu tam do count. So now we are talking about Barrow going for 20 years or more.
Close to
Do you understand?
That is weird.
Even though he said, it's fair to say that he is committed, he said.
It seems like it's going to be another batch.
Let's hope it's
I don't know. I hope
a number of constituencies and not just one.
But in Bemin Fokanya Ali, Molmi Anko Jibe Kang, Kerr Fatou and member caring live, to radio, results will come the chairman Filabe Daka. But in a minje follow, community, very political minty, Munia Karte Fai, particularly Molu, it told results as to journal. But I come to Kodal, NPP Moli, it always be comfortable in that.
On this spot counting, ikaje ay kibatalal fango batandile. Bao party leka kibaro soto janni kibatalal fango dola. So I called all some manang instead sign party lela mo kibatala by sign kibatala ka bank on party lela ka kibaro soto e blue.
That's a good point.
So obviously because the lado bi mi anko wele yela central le soto e ka tabule soto ke dan.
Kana fen ko la announcement do lang yela moy. Are they coming? Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the session. Right now, we have 3 more constituencies. So the chairman will right away go and do the declaration. Welcome, Kerr.
Thank you. I, Aliman Jai, returning officer to the election for 4th December 2021, hereby announce the results from the Serrekunda constituency in the canvassing of the as follows. Barrow, NPP, 7,143. 7,143. Dawo, UDP, 1,952. 1952. Fal, Independence, 272. 272. Abdullah Ibrahim Jami, NUP, 56. 56. Mama Kandeh, GDC, 727. 727. Babu Karsala, Al-Basala, Doi, 1,927. 1927. The results were witnessed and endorsed by Mohammed Badi, agent for NPP. These were confirmed and by Alajina of the Quran. Doi Jabujo, Doi James Bahum, here for by Fal. Alaji Conte, NPP. Dr. Demba Sabari, NPP. Sidi Kasama, NUP. Ibrahim GDC. Moreves move GDC. Sign the money.
Well, these are the results from Serrekunda constituency in the Kandeh administrative area. NPP Adama Barrow 7,143. ANM Hussein Dabo UDP 1,952. Esa Baifal Independent 272. Abdullah Ibrahim Jame NUP 56. Mama Kandeh GDC 727. Alifa Abubakar Sala PDOIS 1,927. The results were witnessed by and endorsed by Momodu Lamin Baji, agent for NPP, and it was witnessed and confirmed by Election House by Alaji Muhammadi Kuram, agent for PDOIS, Jabu Joe, agent for PDOIS, James Baum, agent for Ensa Mbaifal, Alaji F. Kandeh, agent for NPP, Dr. Demba Sabali, agent for NPP, Sidi Gazama, agent for NUP, Ibrahim Anyang, agent for GDC, and Momodu ABS Mbuk, agent for GDC, and was endorsed by Alaji Momodu Njai, chairman IEC.
This Akari F. Conte, right? Okay, sorry about that.
Alimu Njai, returning officer of the election of 4th December 2021, hereby announce the results from the Kerr Central constituency in the Matoko election area as follows. Barrow, NPP, 3,496. 3496. Dabo, UDP, 2,469. 2469. Islamabad Independent, 72. 72. Abdullah Ibrahim Jami, NUP, 52. 52. Mama Kandeh, GDC, 270. Alifa Abakar Sala, Doi, 42. There were 3 invalid votes. The results were witnessed and endorsed by Burama Fatou Sane, agent for NPP, Papanjai Sanyang, agent for NPP, Almanu Diva, agent for UDP, Kebra Kamara, agent for Doi, Amanu Esba, agent for GDC. The results were witnessed and confirmed at the election house by Alhaji Mudukura, Doi, Jawu Endo, Doi, James Wahum for Esamaifal, Alkali F. Kandeh, agent for NPP, Dr. Demba Sabali, agent for NPP, Moru Ibes Mo, GDC, Ibrahim agent for GDC, and CD Gazama, agent for NUP. Signed,
Administrative area. Barrow NPP 3,496. A&M Hussein Odawa UDP 2,469. Esa Mbaifal Independent 72. Abdullah Ibrahim Ajami NUP 52. Mama Kandeh GDC 270. Alifa Babakar Sala PDIS 42. There were 3 invalid votes. The results were witnessed and endorsed by Burama Fatou Sane, agent for NPP, Fafanjai Sanyang, agent for NPP, and Mahmoud Diba, agent for UDP, Keba Kamara, agent for PDIS, Ahmad Esba, agent for GDC. And they were also witnessed and confirmed by Alhaji Muhammad Kurang, PDIS, Jabu N. Joe, agent for PDIS, James Bahum, agent for Esa Mbaifal, Alhaji F. Kandeh, agent for NPP, Dr. Demba Sabali, agent for NRP, Momori ABS Mbuk, agent for GDC, Ibrahim Anyang, agent for GDC, and Sili Gazama, agent for NUP. And they are signed and endorsed by Aliu Muhammad Jai, chairman of IEC.
I, Aliu Muhammad Jai, returning officer, election of 4th December 2021. Hereby announce the results from the Jara Central constituency in the area as follows. Barrow, NPP 3,303, 3303. A.M. Sunitabo, UDP 1,313, 1313. Esa Mbaifal Independent 71 votes, 71. Abdullah Ibrahim Jami, NUP 60 votes, 60. Mama Kandeh, GDC 494, 494. Alifa Babakar Sala, Doi 50, 50. There were 3 invalid votes. The results were witnessed and endorsed by Burama Fatou Sane, agent for NPP, Papanjai Sanyang, agent for NPP, Almanu Diva, agent for UDP, Keba Kamara, agent for Doi, Ahmad Esba, agent for GDC. The results were witnessed and confirmed at the election house by Alhaji Mudukura, agent for Doi, Jabuja, agent for Doi, James Bahum, agent for Maifal, Alkali F. Kandeh, agent for NPP, Dr. Demba Sabali, again for NPP, again for the GDC, Ibrahim again for the GDC, and CD Gazawa, agent for NUP. Thank you.
Now the results for the Jara Central constituency, Mansakongo administrative area. A&M Adama Barrow, NPP 3,303. Adama Barrow, NPP 3,303. A&M Usenu Dabo, UDP 1,313. Esa Maifal, Independent 71. Abdullah Ibrahim Jame, NUP 60. Mama Kandeh, GDC 494. Khalifa Babakar Sara, PDOIS 50. There were 3 invalid votes. The results were witnessed and endorsed by Burama Fabu Sane, agent for NPP, Fafa Njai Sanyang, agent for NPP, Almamo Diba, agent for UDP, Keba Kamara, agent for PDOIS, Amadou Esba, agent for GDC. And they were confirmed and witnessed by Alaji Mamadi Kurang, agent for PDOIS, Jabu Jo, agent for PDOIS, James Bahum, Esa Maifal, Alkali F. Kandeh, agent for NPP, Dr. Demba Sabali, agent for NPP, Mamoud ABS Mbub, agent for GDC, Ibrahim Anyang, agent for GDC, and Sidi Gazama, agent for NUP. Signed and endorsed by Alaji Momorinjai, IEC chairman.
Okay, thank you. So that does it for the 3 so far, and we hope to receive more very soon. Huh? Bear with us, okay? Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you.
Something.
Okay. Charles. That was Chairman Ali Momorinjai. He's walking back to his office again. I can see him being escorted by the police and also some IEC officials. Party officials are here. I just saw representatives from Sambai Fal, NPP, and other party officials. They're all here because they have to sign the documents before the IEC chairman comes out. So once he's ready, they walk back in with him. And it seems like Lamin, 3 numbers are in. 3 numbers are in. But the NPP, it seems like some of the numbers we are seeing on the social media is looking like they're right numbers. Just before the announcement, we started talking about what we're hearing from both camps. It seems like the NPP is still holding on to their lead. We have seen Serrekunda. What surprises me in Serrekunda is Doi. NPP poll 7,143, UDP 1,952, Sambai Fal 372, NUP 56, GDC 727, and Doi 1,927. Serrekunda, interesting.
Yes, I agree with you that though it's disappointingly bad there,
yeah,
because that is the constituency of the presidential candidate for Doi,
yeah,
Khalifa Abubakar Salah. And again, if this was a parliamentary election, you certainly said that Khalifa would have lost his seat,
yeah,
to the NPP. But then again, it goes to the same thing. You know, when it's come to presidential elections, where the stake is like the winner takes all, like I tell you, you know, people are only focused on these two forces.
Cham, can you pull your mic closer?
For the big prize, which is the #1 Marine. If you look at this thing, you would have thought naturally that Halifa Saleh would have pulled heavily. Would have been a heavyweight in this area because this is backyard.
That is his backyard, yeah.
And this is where I mean, he had been a politician for quite a long time. But remember, of course, it was Serrekunda East. It was divided into Serrekunda, Bundung, Serrekunda, and other constituencies in there. So again, it is a surprise that though he did not do well in the home of their presidential candidate, but like I tell you, it's a reflection of what I have said before. People in this constituency might consider, in fact, Halifa as a very good parliamentarian, but then when it comes to the presidency, I have my choice. It may well be that if there is tomorrow a parliamentary election and Halifa contests, he may win.
I don't think so, Lali.
Either one, out of solidarity with NPP, who may not put up a candidate against him. I mean, you know, they may.
His last election, that's what happened, right? In 2017.
They may negotiate with him when it comes to parliamentary, but for the presidency, #1 Marina, they are uncompromising and unforgivable. So I'm quite sure that that is the perception voters in Serrekunda has, that, well, Halifa, well, we may have loved you, good parliamentarian, but when it comes to the presidency, we prefer Barrow to you.
The margin, though, is really huge, Esa. So if you add the entire opposition,
they will still be behind.
They will still be behind.
Far behind.
It's far behind. If you add the entire opposition, you know, they still cannot catch up with NPP in Serrekunda, considering Halifa, that's his backyard. What is this telling you?
I think so far this is the biggest surprise in KM.
Yeah.
So far, this is the biggest surprise. Yeah. Because I predicted that Halifa was going to perform well in Serrekunda. Now I'm proven wrong.
Yes.
And I did not also think that UDP will score such a low number compared to NPP. So I was like, the 7,000. I was like, okay, where is it coming from? Because that's what came to my mind. It's just huge. But then it tells you one thing again. It goes back to my point of the ethno-linguistic dimension of our politics. If you look at Serrekunda, it's a multi-ethnic setting.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Even though I expected the UDP to perform, you know, better than this, but I did not also expect them to win there. In fact, my prediction was that it was going to be between NPP and Halifa. Halifa was going to do far better than UDP there because of the multi-ethnic nature of the setting. So the other candidates coming with such a low number, it's not a surprise. But also I thought Esa could have done better there. That was my prediction. I thought he will do better in Serrekunda. But unfortunately, for him anyway, it's coming out this way. So let's see. I mean, Cham is saying that if it is parliamentary, probably Halifa will do better. I think, sometimes also people are carried. You have to understand one thing, why Halifa was able to comfortably win in Serrekunda during the 2017 parliamentary election. Because remember, this was the time of the so-called tactical alliance that they were talking about. So it worked. Like some of them parties in the coalition did not put up candidates. You remember UDP did not put up a candidate in Serrekunda. You know, the advantage of incumbency, because Barrow as a parliamentarian for Serrekunda constituency, we are looking at it is going to be very tough for him. So I think this is a message to Halifa, not only into election or National Assembly. So it tells him the end of Halifa's end of representation in Serrekunda. Because this is a very bad result for Dai in Serrekunda. It's the stronghold, it's the hometown of Halifa, and then having such abysmal performance there, I think, you know, electorally is just bad for the party.
But also for UDP, what message is this telling to UDP? They have a mayor there.
Exactly.
The KMC mayor is from UDP, and this mayor is somebody that everybody thought was, like, people really love him. He's young, he's dynamic, he's doing very well at council level, and this is his backyard. If KMC, if UDP is losing so badly in KMC, UDP should be worried about that.
Yeah, I think that one, in fact, I was also analyzing that. And the case of Serrekunda, it's not a surprise because I think what happened also, it has to do with protest votes. You understand? Protest votes in the sense of, like I said, the multi-ethnic setting.
Yeah.
Talib as a mayor has been doing well for Kerr since he came to office. But then, the man has been looking at Talib as an individual, as a mayor who is doing well, but the party that he represents. Okay. You understand? Even if Talib has good intentions and doing well for the municipality, but then they're looking at the party. Like we always say, even before election, we've had some people say, yes, Barrow is not the option, it's not the one to do it, but then we prefer him to UDP. Yeah. Do you understand? So Talib might be good one, but then the part that would contribute to it, even in Banjul, although unofficial, but we've had reports that the MPP has won there. Yeah. Rohim Malik Low is doing well in Banjul, but then even Rohim Malik Low he struggled during the mayoral election. Yes. Do you understand? And the people might appreciate Rohi, but then the party that she represents, looking at also Banjul, the ethnic setting and all that, not so they will prefer. So a protest vote will come here. They will prefer to vote for Barrow than to vote for UDP. Judging the party just by the mayors and the performance that they've been doing.
For me, looking at this, Serrekunda, very surprising. It raises a question of where these NPP votes are coming from. Because we've been focusing a lot on the push and pull factor between MPP and Mama Kandeh, and then we see these huge gaps where you cannot even compare them. You cannot put them in the same category. And then it's because what raised that for me is how far behind UDP is there. So is there a question we have not been asking ourselves? How many? We know that UDP we say is a structured, well-grounded party. But then, how many of their votes? Grounded? Yes. Has the NPP polled? It's yes, because we've been talking about, and even the public people raised that question of the SFL, NPP, and GDC pulling some votes like that they would be the biggest threats to maybe NPP votes. But looking at these huge margins, looking at these high number of votes, looking at Serrekunda, this huge gap between NPP and UDP has raised that question in my, because looking at it, it's definitely not coming from just the GDCs. It's not. Yeah. So if this trend continues, we start questioning the stronghold of that UDP and how much has the NPP, and could you could we just put all of this down to power of incumbency or other factors? I think that is it. Mostly the power of incumbency contributes a lot, because Gambians can be easily carried away by the wave, the political wave, especially that some people with this notion, like I said, some will prefer to vote for Barrow than to have Dabo, and then also some people with this belief that, look, we wouldn't go against an incumbent. Yeah. You understand? And also, because of the resources that are available for the incumbent to get to these people. So it's a matter of penetrating. I think what the NPP must have done is to see how best they can penetrate, not only DOI, but even those those UDP supporters in Serrekunda. So it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. It worked this way because when it comes to the power of incumbency. So sometimes we think that the power of incumbency resources when it comes to money or inducement only works in the rural areas in provincial Gambia, but you realize that even in urban Gambia it works there. Yeah. So it's coming out this way, although disappointing and then when you look at the percentages, it has really worked, because looking at Serrekunda is 86% turnout. Yeah. Looking at Jara Central, 88% turnout. Yeah. And then 91% turnout at Kian Central after doing the math here. So the incumbency has reached out. They have.
When I heard you asking where are these NPP votes coming from, it crossed my mind that okay, if this was borderline constituency, and having had allegations and complaints from opposition parties that the ruling parties, so to speak, are encouraging cross-border voting. I would have, reason to believe that could it have been that these are cross-border voters, but this deep inside, the Gambia, deep inside the territory where it's very far from the border. So it will be difficult to suggest that the NPP, if the allegation is true, could have been able to bring in cross-border voters and plant them in these constituencies. I mean, it would have been on a scale that it wouldn't go unnoticed. It would have caused alarm. I'm not saying you are suggesting. I'm saying if it was a borderline constituency, maybe you could believe those theories and allegations might be the case. Because at the end of the day here, opposition politicians are going to analyze these results. And don't take it away. I'm sure they're coming up with. They may come up with issues that will really be, that could really, relate to this kind of perceptions I'm having. I remember Mama Kandeh, at the end of the registration exercise, he raised what was an alarm that nobody really paid much attention. He said, look, there's something I observe. The higher number of voters in the rural areas is a cause for concern. He said that.
He said that,
I mean, he did not say exactly what he meant, but he was completely surprised that there is suddenly a very high number of voter register, the list in the rural areas. He mentioned that case. And of course, if you look at it too, sometimes you wonder, like you said, I have always said, even on the Jammes time, when they said we had 800,000 voters in the Gambia of a population of 2 million. I said, look, I cannot believe that a country, more than half of the country, almost half of the country's population are eligible to vote. So I find it difficult. If I go to the United Kingdom, 65 million people. And when they go to the polls, it's always 35 or 20 or 25 million.
Kenya with 50-something million, they have around 12, 14 million.
16,000 voters. 16 million.
60 million.
When was your last register? 6 million. That's less than half. So what I've been saying, depuis jamono Jammeh, ñu ne Gambia, et non, 1 million et quelque là, et puis ñu war 800,000 ñoo war a wote. Man dama day xalaat ma ne
not to cut you.
Dina day am yeneen réew yi day ñëw bokk ci waaye nag Gambia mënut a am 2 million. Then I'm half of the population eligible for election.
Not to cut you.
I have said this on the Jammeh's time. I said it's not possible.
No, not to cut you.
So, mun na am li ñu daw, am nga fii ci réewi Afrique man fekk naa foofu CEDEAO seen njiit bi nekk fii nii. Gambie mu ne moom Liberia la jógee. waaye mu ne Liberia moom fi mu jógee ci Liberia ak Sierra Leone frontière la. mu ne bu demee foofu gis mbokkaam yi ku nekk a ngi amee carte national identity Sierra Leone, Guinée ak Liberia. bu leen laaj ñu ne ko ñun su wootee jotee Sierra Leone ñu dem su ma jotee Liberia ñu dem bu jotee fële ñu dem so lii kenn mënu ko génne ci waxuma nag ne loolu moo xew waaye nag suñ demee ba xalaat fan la yeneen kàddu yi jógee mën naa am xel mën na fa dem.
That's what I want to say. I wanted to say that. I wanted to say when you say when you say cross-border voting, it's not only even in border towns. Do you understand? Because cross-border voting.
ñii de moom su gaayam yi ñëwee saani carte daf lay jël carte yi denke ko ci bureau parti am boofu la soldat yi dem lax nag loolu moo tax man nag depuis jamono Jammeh man mënuma gom ne 2 millions population nga ne moitié foofu yëpp mënu nekk.
So what I was trying to say is that when you say cross-border voting, it might not only be those border towns or villages, but it could be like people living even within Serrekunda. Who are these people that are acquiring voters card? Like I said, we are not alleging that this is what happened. But looking at these parties in Serrekunda, having such a significant margin, I mean, it keeps you must be wondering what must have gone, I wouldn't say wrong, but what happened in this constituency. So the cross-border voting might not necessarily be those in the town, but even those in the town, in the heart of the Gambia, can be affected depending on the people that are settling there. If they are non-nationals, it's still qualified as cross-border voting because it's a matter of them crossing borders to vote. Do you understand? Exactly, not being citizens or whatever. Even because we've had reports, confirmed reports of even minors registered to vote, and that is why people were saying that MPP, Barrow was followed by kids. I think people were saying that during the campaign. It's only young people. And somebody told me that, look, be mindful. Some of these young people could afford to start.
No, just 2 days ago, I was discussing with someone concerning those they call minors following NPP. But this was what we were discussing. Don't be surprised that each of them has a voter's card. Of course. Now you will wonder where these figures are coming from. But one thing I observed, that is, I think the NPP has done their homework. Many thought the coming of Esa and Mama Kandeh as usual, will be
spoiler effect. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But then follow like that. Yeah, but then instead both Esa and Mama Kandeh are losing votes to NPP. Yeah, and again, so unfortunate for PDOIS. This is their stronghold. We are still not talking of NPP's stronghold. This is PDOI's stronghold where the candidate lives. So if NPP can perform this very well, the total number of votes that all the opposition got is 4,934. They have 7,143
in that constituency.
Yes, in that constituency.
They have done dismally bad.
Absolutely at Serrekunda.
I'm just watching a video from State House. State House, ñu ngi fété dé. Gis na Barrow mu ngi taccu mu ngi fété ak gaayam yépp. Dinañ ko wone légui like just right now. It seems like, guy that you in good spirit.
Well, that's not a signal of celebration. Although not spark celebrations around.
If you look at the parties or the candidates and the agents, UDP had 100%. So that means they were represented. They had a representation at all the 101,554 polling stations.
Yes.
NPP had 98. So that means barring 1 or 2, they were everywhere. So I think whatever numbers the IEC are going to confirm, these two parties should have been able to, by and large. So I think the scenes from the State House.
I told you this before.
I think they believe they have nailed it, and I do not think, looking at these numbers, I don't think anything would happen over the next 12 hours that will disturb that finding.
That's what
I think these results, I think, will really shock pollsters and political scientists, because all over it looks like. But again, if you look at I think Sepras and also the over, they said the likelihood. But even then, it was like a small margin. But it's looking like it's going to be a huge margin. Contrary to what we all anticipated. So again, it will send us back to drawing board in terms of how we actually analyze some of these things. But politics is fluid.
Absolutely.
Okay. But again, I don't think even Barrow himself, the reason why Dembo by force said those things over there only a few days ago, is because the likelihood of UDP winning, there was that prospect. And I think the reason why Barrow continues to kind of emphasize this issue to the IEC, that be fair, be
neutral,
it's neutral. That is unknown in the African context, because normally the
opposition
who normally cry foul. But here it's almost like it's the incumbent crying
foul. And also what happened today.
So it's almost like Barrow, there was a certain degree of expectation that UDP might actually win, and if that were to happen, whether they will file a legal case or whatever, but then they will say this is why we've been crying from nomination day and afterwards. But in terms of in terms of DOI, UDP, and Mama Kandeh in some of these regions. I don't know. The reason why Barrow even attacked SFL, disclosing truth about the salary and stuff like it, is because even then, and this was only 4 days ago or something like it, that perhaps even at the time Barrow was worried that this guy was going to pull significantly from him, because even if he managed to pull 10% from him, that where this was going to be a very narrow margins. But so probably even Barrow himself and the NPP people are probably shocked at these results, even though it looks like they were confident that they were going to win as well. UDP had been utterly organized. Yeah. They had money. Nobody could match the resources of the NPP, but they had significant money. Organization. Wherever you went, you see yellow. So it brings us back into question whether these are artificial or superficial.
It beats imagination.
It beats imagination.
What? Yeah.
That's Serrekunda.
That the lead I saw,
yeah,
was almost suddenly on a salary.
Yeah.
And I knew that what was left from the votes cannot cancel or overtake the lead established by the NPP. I know that much earlier.
Yeah. Papa, numéro Serrekunda Khalifa Sallah ba tay fa la joggé. Waye boko sété bo adé opposition yépp ba tay NPP rawé dafa bari. Ba tay
Serrekunda fa la siège NPP nek. On a benn siège bu fa nek.
Waaw.
Ñu romb. Bala passe bañ fay dem. Mais so xolé dama wax né xam nga su bañ def analyser gaay du bari dañ dem né Essa Fall ak Mama Kandeh mën na wàññi dara ci vote Adama Barrow.
Yeah.
Analyse boobu moo amul. léegi nag analyse boobu moo amul. mais soo xoolee UDP. liñ mën niñ koy def. mais Essa Fall ak Mama Kandeh. ñoo wàññiwul votu NPP.
déedéet wàññiwuñ ko. Waaw.
NPP fait lu ñu wax le à fond la caisse. lépp lu mën da koy jël. waaw NPP moom mën nañu wax ne fi nekk liñ doon xalaat ci analyse ne Essa Fall Mama Kandeh bés bu ñu ñëwee mën nañu wàññi parce que dañu leen wax ne comme Yaya ànd na ak kii.
waaw
àndu APRC ak kii Barrow. day xar ñaar.
waaw
mais est-ce que loolu am na.
est-ce que loolu am na.
tey bu ñu analyser résultat
état bi si foo yi rek lañ gisee loolu tuuti sax. mais lu foo ñu yëpp sax.
tuuti nga ci gis. mais donc ma lay wax ne la foofu tey ji li ma la doon wax rek 4 premiers yi génn na.
waaw.
léegi fi mu nekk nii 4 premiers yi xam nañ ne. bu ñuy xool ci lu génn gum. bu fekkee fii ci résultat yi amagum. mën nañu wax ne NPP moo jël premier UDP deuxième troisième Mama Kandeh quatrième Essa Fall.
waaw fa lañ tolloo ngum de.
waaw
loolu moo am fa lañ tolloo ngum.
mooy 4 premiers yi ma la doon wax la nag.
a distant third.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Very
distant at the back.
And then Essa said he was going to take second, and Barrow was going to
actually, he said Barrow was not even going to be at the first stop too.
And I think another thing is question where we are as in terms of our political culture, or in terms of our democracy. Like, it creates more questions.
Yeah.
It creates more
questions.
Like, where are we?
Yeah.
What are the trends? Where are we heading? Because if we want to talk on crowd politics, Essa Fall being this far behind, we cannot, we cannot put it down to crowd politics. When we talk about the unfortunate ethno-linguistic lines as well, in Serrekunda, GDC being this far behind, again, where does the ethno-linguistic in terms of Serrekunda? So again, it has created this gap in terms of analyzing our political culture. It has raised more questions than answers. So we still have a long way to go to see post-dictatorial era again. We've still not found our ground in terms of electoral process.
And I tend to question, like she said. That's where I would take it from. Our political culture. Have we totally delinked from Jame, from the Jame era politics? Have we totally delinked from it? Knowing the fact that, you know, during Jame's time, elections have been influenced by ethno-linguistic issues. I mean, you know, money or resources. Do you understand? Even at some point, protest votes. These are things that are resurfacing, and I agree with her. It raises more questions about our democracy, our state of political culture. Are we really voting based on issues? Are we really looking at the complex challenges that we're facing as a country? I mean, looking at these things and seeing how to tackle them. I mean, because if you look at Serrekunda, in matured political cultures, places like Serrekunda, I think in mature political cultures, this is where, in fact, the incumbents will be struggling. Because this is the urban center where lives and livelihoods tend to be more difficult. Living cost is higher and all that not. So you expect that, and all the challenges that you have looking at, you know, healthcare problem, roads here and there, even though the rural areas have more of those problems. But then this is the nerve center, the economic center, the economic powerhouse of the country. And if those challenges are there, at the end of the day, you come to see people voting for the incumbent, you tend to question what is going on. Are we really voting based on issues? Do you understand? Look at it, even Banjul. Banjul as the capital. Unconfirmed reports are telling us that MPP have swept that area. And then you look at Banjul as a capital, go to other places, neighboring Dakar. I tell people that Banjul, if Banjul is given to some countries, like they will build Banjul within a month and they are done with it. But you look at Banjul as a capital, and then people tend to easily fall for the incumbent. We said Banjul is not there, like we've been seeing it. It has been happening even during Jawara's time. I wasn't born by then, but I know this must have been the trend. Do you understand? The incumbent winning in Banjul, coming to Jame, it's the same thing. Coming to Barrow, it's the same thing. So, and you expect also, it's not only the problems that are present in these, you know, settlements like urban areas, but also you expect that this is where the education level should be high. Do you understand? People have gone to school, people have gone to university. This is where they are settled. So you're expecting that the way they should be thinking. And it goes back to Halima's point earlier, that it is then disappointing that we are saying that a lot of young people went out to vote, and then we are saying as a country we're facing a lot of challenges, and most of these young people have also gone to school. We expect these young people, I'm not necessarily saying that people should not have voted for Barrow, but then I'm talking about the realities. When we come to analyze our political realities, when we come to analyze our real issues, when we come to analyze our democracy, our political culture, you tend to ask yourself, are people really concerned about issues? Are people really listening to politicians who are talking about issues? That is why I've said earlier on, this debate that was organized earlier on. I mean, Barrow, Dabo, this is what Barrow was looking for. And that's why he never wanted to waste his time to go to that debate. Because he knew that he was talking to maybe only 1% or 2% of the voter population. Dabo knew that he was also talking to only 1 or 2% of the voter population. They didn't want to waste their time to go there, because they knew even the so-called educated elites have already made up their mind who to vote for. Protest vote in some case. So it wouldn't make sense to them to go to you know, sacrifice 10 hours or 12 hours or even 24 hours of their campaign time to go and debate there. So it brings back the question, where are we heading to as a country in terms of political culture, in terms of the strive that we're saying that we are on in consolidating our democratic gains? This raises more questions than answers.
This raises more questions than answers. Let's watch the video that just came out of State House, and we will look at Jara and Kerr. That's an element of surprise for me. This is a 45 seconds video though, but just to show what is happening right now at State House. Let's watch. So that's the scene at State House right now. Seems like things are looking good there. They're celebrating, and
is it looking good there?
It's looking good there. So many food around and water and all this stuff. But yeah, I think for me the biggest surprise UDP will be facing is in the Jaras. Dabo called it the fixed deposit. But what I'm seeing in LRR.
No, he may eventually win LRR, but you see the two constituencies of Central Kiang and Central Jara have always been a problem for the UDP. Again, you cannot the ethnic composition of those two constituencies, and it has always been like that. Even on the Jawara, well, what happened is that the predominantly Mandingos and the what in the area called Kabada, which is predominantly Fullers, have always been having problems when it comes to political leadership. For example, I knew of a hotly contested chieftaincy election in Japine when I was very young. That went to Sitahuma for Haruna, I forgot his name now. That was the first time the power was, taken away from the predominantly Mandingos in Japane to Sitahuma. And then, of course, when it comes to selection of parliamentary aspirants for the PPP, there's always a problem. I mean, the Kabada people always want to contest, but always the predominantly Mandingos, if you take somebody from there, he might not win because he will not be accessed. So that had always been there. So that I knew it would be a problem, the two central constituencies. But then when you come to the, Jara East, Jara West, Kiang East, Kiang West, almost certainly it's going to be UDP which will win. So eventually LRR will go for UDP. But then of course the two central, two constituencies of Kiang Central and Jara Central and Kiang. I knew, no surprise there, they will go to anybody but UDP.
NPP. You saw the celebrations at State House. Seems like the NPP is on course. They are comfortably leading, but they also look very happy right now at the State House.
Yeah, but again, it really brings into focus our politics and our priorities. You speak to a lot of Gambians, and they will tell you that they do not believe Barrow is competent enough. A lot of people say this in our private conversations. Out of every 10 that you meet, 7 or 8 will say he's not good enough. The price of commodities have skyrocketed over the last 4 or 5 years. The state of our security. If you look at crime, if you look at violent crime, it's on the increase. If you look at women dying in our hospitals during delivery. If you look at everything in our country, despite all these challenges, it looks like Barrow is going to win comfortably. Then we have to ask ourselves, what are the driving forces? What are the factors behind these numbers? Because ordinarily you would think that if people, if all these socio-economic factors directly impact our lives, that therefore when we cast our votes, we should cast our votes in a way that it has meaning in our lives. These results are devoid of those facts and circumstances. So we have to ask ourselves, at the moment I do not see these numbers having any correlation with priority voting or voting based on policy or programs. Unfortunately, I don't, because of the dynamics of 2021, the dynamics of the transition period, the dynamics of the fragmentation of the coalition, So there are so many different factors. But even we didn't expect Ablai Jammeh because he was almost largely invisible. So we didn't really expect anything. But we expected a lot from SFL, for example. We expected that he was going to appeal to a certain segment of the population. But it doesn't look like that has happened. So it looks like, therefore, that this was going to be, it came down to those who wanted Barrow to remain, in which case that would have been a constituency in total that is completely against a UDP government. Either a UDP government because of fear of the issue of tribe. So if you go back to what has been floating around over the last year or so, or the last couple of years, particularly more recently, during this campaign. So either that, or people who believe that Barrow is completely out of his depth, or probably even go further, people who simply wanted, because over the last few weeks, it for the UDP supporters, it's almost like it became gospel. You speak to certain UDP people, and they were so confident of winning. They were so confident of winning. I spoke to a few UDP, and it's almost like nothing was going to stop them. UDP victory in the 2021 election. It doesn't look like that is going to be the case. It doesn't even look like that they're going to get anywhere close to Barrow. So that means, therefore, Barrow must have got something right. Where the overwhelming majority of the Gambian people decide to vote for him. Again, we have to, yes, the power of incumbency would always give you an edge. But again, a lot of money. A lot of money was spent recently. A lot of money. And I think because Barrow said this is a matter of life and death. And over the last few weeks, when we saw pictures of cabinet ministers in parts of the country with tons of money, did that have an impact on these results? So I think for you, you political scientists, and I'm sure this will be work for you to really dissect the result, because it really contradicts the assumptions and the predictions. It really, but again, it's not unusual. Sometimes but even in America or even the UK, sometimes the polls are like so narrow that it's too close to call. But in the end, it becomes a wide margin. But it's
Serrekunda Central, Esther, is it 372 or 272? It's 272. So I think I made a mistake in our, but I'll take that in a minute. But what I'm seeing from the numbers I'm seeing, it seems like Khalifa is coming to the 4th position. Unconfirmed numbers, but it seems like Khalifa is coming 3rd position, slightly behind GDC. And
it's 4th.
4th position. 4th, sorry.
Well,
but it's
but Mama Kandeh, but again, this is
Kandeh
crazy,
And with the numbers that are coming, Kandeh is not even getting, might not even get his 17% that he got.
I want to believe
even
that
with the APRC merger.
With regards to Kandeh and ESA, and then the numbers we're seeing with Barrow again, it's bringing me back to another group like the silent majority that we've had. We've had over 900,000 registered voters, and these crowds have not been polling up to 50,000, right? So there has been a huge silent majority where we see that when the confidence of the UDP comes from the crowd, the confidence of the NPP comes from the crowd. When you talk to people, it's because of the crowds that they see. They're almost certain that they're going to win it. But then again, Mama Kandeh has been pulling some good crowds here and there, and then SFL also polling crowds, which is not reflecting in the few that which is not reflecting at all. So it's like when we talk of the silent majority not coming out to all these political rallies, it takes me back to you whether the resources, how much has this money done in trying to sway, because NPP being a new party, it's a new party compared to almost all of them. They're new with NUP and SFL. How much political strategy have we seen there? Is it all going to power of incumbency? Yes, that's all right. But for an incumbency that has such a poor record, if I may say, right? It begs questions again. And secondly, when we talk about transitional democracy again, ESA, when we think back at 2016, remember when we ousted Jammeh, was it just to oust a dictator, or was it democracy in its entirety that we were heading to? Because if it is democracy in its entirety, we would see that no reforms have happened, as the coalitions told us, whether security, CRT, and human rights records. Even though we've not been seeing violations as we've seen in the previous government, but the prioritization of human rights has not happened as we'd hoped for. The health sector and all of. So Gambian people, when we see, well, it's too early to say, but when we see like this, what is our understanding of democracy? Did it just stop at getting rid of a dictator, or do we understand that there's more to it in holding accountable a president that has never showed up until election year, that has never addressed issues? We've had sagas in this country where the president never comes out to reassure us. We would just get press releases from cabinet with the political petroleum saga and other sagas when there is pressure from the public. But a presidency that has never been sort of answerable to the population. How much have we taken that power as Gambian people, that democracy was not just about getting rid of Jammeh, it is about empowering us. It is about us deciding, becoming like the decision makers, and that is not.
I think I have something to add on that. Very interesting point. 2016, I think we found ourselves in a democracy, but our aim was to end dictatorship. What comes after that, we were not interested in that. Okay? And that is why today, if you talk to some people, they will tell you that, well, Barrow is peaceful. He's a nice guy. Because Barrow is not arresting people and taking them to Jammeh's five-star hotel. And they take him to be peaceful. Gambia is in peace. That's it, because we are not taking up guns. Barrow is not arresting people. So it tells you that Gambians are interested in, because I remember during Barrow's nomination, I was coming to Serrekunda and there was a lady on top of a car vehicle shouting, Barrow jamala ham, mom niti jamala, ni mom suñ bokay mom suñ ñewé moy ne ni. Do you understand? So they see him as that harmless person.
That harmless guy.
Do you understand? So it shows that Gambians were interested in ending dictatorship, because Jammeh was arresting, Jammeh was killing, Jammeh was torturing. They wanted to end that. But now we found ourselves in a democracy. It goes back to my point, always I say, how do we consolidate the democracy? It seems like people are not interested in that, because if you talked about the issue of accountability, corruption in the country, do you understand? Because if you look at one of the fundamental problems, like I said, the most important issue Gambians should have voted on this December election should have been corruption. Should have been on top. Under this government since 2017, we have seen and had a lot of sagas. And the government has not taken a single step. Only once, I think, the Fisheries Permanent Secretary was taken. So you realize that democracy, you see, human rights, good governance, democracy, these things go hand in hand. You cannot have one in the absence of the other. Rule of law. So holding the government to account, holding the president to account, especially the fundamental objectives upon which he was elected, reforms, from the security sector reform, the constitutional reform, the civil service reform. All these reforms have not been achieved, and then Gambians yet go to the poll to say, we are entrusting you with our country for another 5 years, possibly 10 years, possibly 20 years. It raises more questions. On the issue of Mama Kandeh, I wanted to talk on that. Why? Because we're wondering why is Mama not performing? I was expecting Mama to be the spoiler effect together with Esa. But Mama's own too, it's critical here. I think at one point, because he got the backing of Jammeh, a lot of us, including myself, thought that Mama will perform better than even 2016. But now I was sitting, analyzing. I said, look, it might be this. That Jammeh, his people might have been telling him that, look, they want to tell him that, look, you're not relevant anymore.
You're not relevant anymore.
Do you understand? You cannot give us that security. Because you see, there are people who feel very insecure in this country. If you go to the UDP, you find some people who are insecure if Barrow will win. If you go to the NPP or APRC, you find some people who are insecure if UDP will win. Do you understand my point? So those people who have been following Jammeh are probably thinking, look, Jammeh can never come back to this country, or cannot come back to this country and guarantee us that security. If we still vote for Kandeh, UDP has the likelihood of winning. And if UDP wins, Jammeh cannot guarantee our security. So the only way we can guarantee our security is to have Barrow to lead. And by voting for Jammeh, we're voting for Kandeh, we are simply empowering UDP. And that is why clearly, when APRC was going into alliance with the NPP, we have had, Duduja, I think, Tombong and others, they said clearly that it's not like we loved Barrow. But because of our security. We feel like if UDP government will come here, that is the end of APRC. It's just like during the Second World War when the Soviet Union went into alliance with the United States. Not because Soviet Union loved the United States, but because they were trying to prevent an aggressor. And that is Nazi Germany. When UK was also going into alliance with the Soviet Union, not because they loved the Soviet Union, but they also wanted to prevent Nazi Germany. Do you understand? So APRC going into alliance with, so the people must have been thinking like, Jammeh cannot guarantee our security. He's just talking. And of recent, people thought that the statements he was making against Barrow, although he was provoking Barrow and all that, but I think that was working bad for him, especially for Mama Kandeh. Because even the victims, if you look at the victims, people must be like, there's no difference between Kandeh and Barrow now. Because we're interested in justice. And Mama being an opposition, also looking at the records consistently since the beginning of the TRRC, he has never outrightly gone against against Jammeh or to support the TRRC and whatever. And I remember one of his meetings not long ago during the campaign, I think, he was asked, I think it was the nomination. He was asked about, after the nomination, I think, there was an interview that he had, where journalists asked him, what do you say about the TRRC? He was like, well, TRRC is about reconciliation. Do you understand? It's about truth. We know the truth and then reconcile. Just like the Barrow understanding of the TRRC. We must know the truth first and then reconcile, forgetting about the justice part of it. So the victims might also be like, look, there's no difference between Barrow and Kandeh. So the APRC supporters that should have been voting for Kandeh might not be like, look, Kandeh cannot guarantee our security because he cannot win the election. At the end of the day, even if you should vote for him now, we're giving chance to UDP to win. At the end of the day, our security wouldn't be guaranteed. So this must have been the protest vote. And I thought, I was not expecting UDP to be beating Barrow in all these places, especially in KM. What I was expecting was for Kandeh to come and take those possible votes of Barrow, potential votes of Barrow. So once he takes that, it's like Barrow might be leading even in these places, but with very limited margin. So UDP winning in the combos and others will be significant, and then that will be the end of him. That was my expectation. But now it's turning out that those APRC voters instead are moving towards Barrow.
Okay. It only shows that now it brings us to the debate: who is more relevant in APRC? Fabakary Tombong or
well, I would
go this way.
I would like to comment on that, but let me go for Mama Kandeh's issue. I have said that Mama Kandeh's relevance dwindled a lot within the electorates that both him and Barrow would naturally draw support from.
Some of his people might have.
Now, what happened was, I told you, I think even Ahmad Ba once said this. He accused Kandeh of tribalism.
Yes.
He went back to history and said, look, we had wanted a party that would represent the voice of the Fulani. Back in '96, when the politicians of the First Republic were forcibly retired by Jammeh. They included the likes of Hassan Musa Kamara, the Matthew Yaya Baldes, and those First Republic politicians that represented the voice of the Fulani at the time. They had wanted now somebody and a movement that will represent their voice.
Yeah.
Even Ahmad Ba said this. They had this party. Ahmad Ba, actually, being very smart, came up with this party, the NRP, the National Reconciliation Party. And then, that was branded as maybe here is the answer. But we understood when he formed his party, prominent people from those areas and that category called Neti Balde and others, they felt that they are more entitled because of the personality, the status they had. They are more entitled, to be leaders of that kind of movement and not Hamad. And he went away to APRC.
Yeah.
Now Hamad was then left, to continue the project. And guess who was his propaganda secretary? Mama Kandeh. Hamad and Mama Kandeh worked together. That is why when they fell apart, Hamad started hitting at Mama Kandeh and said, look, Mama Kandeh wants tribalism, it won't work here. What you can understand is that in 2016, Mama Kandeh came and he was a magnet to these kind of voters I'm talking of, who consider that they need to have someone among them, who should be there. Yeah. Mama Kandeh attracted a lot of them. Within a short while, maybe 4 months of the formation of his party and the elections, he was able to, mobilize supporters in CRR, in URR, in massive numbers. But then, when Barrow came, the table turned. Hamad never forgive Mama Kandeh for really reducing his influence in those areas. I can remember the Nyaminas, where that show, the late show of GDC, where he contested. That was meant to be an NRP stronghold. But GDC took that. Hamad Ba never forgave Kandeh for that. But now, with the coming of Barrow, Hamad has an ally. He has an ally in Barrow, which many of those category of voters considered, well, we were looking for somebody, here is our man. So what are we looking after from Mama Kandeh? When we already have
an incumbent
already. If we already have somebody who's on the throne. So that killed Mama's relevance. And I always knew from the by-election in Jokadu that Jokadu and Nyamina, I knew that his influence there was definitely being wiped out by Barrow. In fact, his alliance with APRC NATO coalition actually masked his loneliness, given the fact that they have boosted his crowds. And if he were to go solo, probably we would have recognized long time how lonely he was. But the coming of the APRC faction, the other faction, actually masked how lonely he had been, all along. So that is why a lot of people considered him, a resurgent force, with the APRC. But it turned out that actually it was the APRC that boosted his company and not necessarily his own base. This is what happened. Now, interestingly, and to many people's surprise, many people believe with the intervention of Jammeh, the APRC, majority of the APRC would really have shifted over to Kandeh.
Yeah.
But
that didn't happen.
That did not happen. We realize now that what Fabakary Tombong, Jatta and others have been saying is that they believe that the majority of the APRC are with them.
Yeah.
Now, you see, the APRC, I think Fabakary and others, wasted their own time far too long. They knew from day one that Jammeh was not coming here. They knew that. From day one, from 2007, they knew Jammeh was not coming. They knew Jammeh is helpless. He has no influence. They knew that very well. But at the time, they did not want to really concede that or put that idea to the rank and file of APRC, because they would have lost support from them.
Yeah.
Everybody was thinking Jammeh was a saint. So the APRC executive refused. You understand me?
Yeah.
They refused bluntly to cool down those expectations from the rank and file. And look, let's forget about Jammeh and move on. They couldn't do that because they knew at the time if they do that, they would lose support from the APRC rank and file. But when the election become near, they know reality is coming. Our man is not coming. And we cannot survive. We have to fight, make a decision. All right? They said, well, the only survival is we are going to Barrow. Because in that case, one, we would be able to survive as a whatever is left of the party, you know, and then you know, I mean, we are going to get the party as our bargaining tool with Barrow. That's our bargaining tool. Well, Barrow had expected he would get the whole party intact. That was his expectation, and probably Jammeh did not believe anything Fabakar and others were saying. That, oh, we are doing this for your interest, we are doing it for interest. I'm sure Jammeh is not convinced that is the case. He just thought that these people now realize that, look, they had to do without me. So he put a spanner in the works and said, look, I am not endorsing this. I want to believe that Fabakar was right when he quoted Jammeh to have initially accepted. I think he was right.
Actually, you know, when I had Rambo, he said actually their first meeting was set up by Jammeh. Jammeh called them and said, this person will call you. Have you heard from them? Is from the Barrow camp. So that was initially set up by Jammeh. So
I want to believe him initially. But I think perhaps Jammeh also might have realized that his interest, whatever they said was his interest in that park, was not actually genuine. Because you know, Jammeh was a former head of state. He had a lot of access to intelligence. He did not trust Senegal. He's Barrow's closeness with. He's not comfortable with it. You know, he knew, I mean, his greatest opposition at the time was led by Senegal. So he's not comfortable with Barrow's relationship with Senegal. That relationship is intact. He knew Macky Sall would really have Barrow and nobody else. He knows. Jammeh knew all this. It is going to be difficult to fool him. To say that, well, you know, I know Barrow will take care of you, you support him. He's not easily going to idea. A smart person, you can say anything of him, smart, he can calculate things. Perhaps he did not really idea that going to give him a soft landing. You know what? I know I'm not going to get anything. I'm not going to be part of it. But in the what actually happened was when Barrow reached out to APRC, most people who not even have been UDP, we are not happy with him. They said, look, you know what? You are now going mad. I mean, these are the last people you should deal with. They were the ones who caused that you were going to solve. People were angry with him just for reaching to the APRC. But with this now, those people, I mean, their fears have been, since they can now believe that, well, Barrow, since Mr. Jammeh himself rejected him, perhaps he will make sense and really execute or act for the process justice is achieved. People, this is a blessing. Now that they suspected that Barrow is dragging his feet some of the things because he wanted a vote.
Yeah, with Jammeh's support.
With Jammeh's especially, yes. But now that Jammeh rejected that, he has no longer any reason, you know, to delay. You know, in terms of justice. So a lot of things are all in this election. And now, what will happen to the UDP again after this?
After this?
Yes. What will happen to the party? Because I had always said that maybe Ousainou Darboe probably wanted to step aside. He realized at the time that the kind of the position of his, the people who line up, you know, a gallery of educated professionals behind him,
over the party,
who may not really be very accommodative of one another. If he leaves, he knows he will break into pieces. So he got trapped. He was the only factor in the UDP. Unifying factor. He could not have left the party before, because that means he is afraid that Barrow will easily catch them, you know. So even to step aside, going to calculate that, look, if I leave, it will penetrate and divide my. Maybe he got, that's why, because he's the only unified in the UDP. If you come to Talib, said Talib stop, he will stop. Another faction of the UDP, if he tells them, they will stop. Without him, Talib accommodate Malik Law or Rohim Malik, or Rohim Malik would accommodate, would Sabali accommodate Mane. Problem is, so Darboe is because there have always been a need, an appeal for him to step aside. Only people saw him as a divisive, you know, thought that the party's chances were greater if he had started and, you know, somebody younger or more palatable to that are not UDP. Many people thought that would have been better for the chances of the UDP, but there was this fear if he leave, if he his people behind that united, so he was unified, he had to remain. But now, and apparently his own health and other things now meant that will not probably go in prison, or are they going to reorganize to get the old guard out and bring younger generation to remodel the and rebrand it and fight for next coming elections? That's the question I would like to.
Rocky, their network is breaking. Can you check? They're telling me the network is breaking. Interesting questions. What happens to the UDP if Barrow wins with the way things are?
I think he has put and I think that brings me to what our colleague from Membe saying here earlier, the tendency of people here and parties being carried by an individual. Seen APRC decision after Jame, we saw vacuum, and we know the question of will there be, by the way, I'm just point out there's still
oh, yes.
Because we're for the official, but if we're saying that's to the trend power vacuum and talking about personalities that are immediately, I think that could go down to the UDP being as a party. Like, who are they trying to appeal to? When it comes to, has his work done enough for him? But then how much does the C translate to of the nation? When it comes to Sabali, those are the people know that if you Sabali as well, of a lot of confidence, right? How long will it take for the people to warm up to Sabali? How much damage control would the UDP do to try to or tackle some of the controversies that have surrounded and in the past and even now some statements. So if the UDP already problem of, as you said, divisiveness that people want to attach to it, Sabali would still, I wouldn't know if he would be the better option to hold on to that unifying factor they might be looking for. Rahim Malik Law, I'm not sure. There is a lot that might be surrounding her. That she's even struggled with the mayoral elections in Banjul, questions of popularity. Will her work also be enough to that we don't like to say that this is coming from me, but then how is the Gambian populace with regards to a female leader? And I believe that political parties have a lot of work to do.
A female Banjulian.
Yeah, a female Banjulian, like down the downsides of so, and I believe political parties have a lot to do in that regard, like trying to augment women into decision-making roles in their parties, getting them ready to see how the party is receptive of them. So yes, I think a power vacuum, because people have warmed up to Dabo. Like that Baba thing is very strong with UDP. And then I think it's also relevant to see a little bit of the history of the UDP, that it is made up of parties that were like disqualified by Jammeh, like from 1994, NCPs, PPPs, and all of that. So that strong base, it carried along with it, and it took time for it to get to this point. So definitely power vacuum. We can hardly sit here, for me personally, to see who could be strong personalities, but then again also taking us back to political parties in this country working on their structures, on their organizational structures. I think they should have clearly outlined, like executives, that we could see the tendencies of someone coming up if certain things should happen. So political parties working on structures, working on organizations, still a long way to go. And that's not unique to UDP alone. I think with the other parties even, because you would question, if not Syria or Halifa, who else in Doi? We've seen it with APRC when Jammeh left, and yeah. NPP is still new, but we don't know. But we'll see. We'll see.
So one thing also, Aliu project, he went to Brufut, and we start saying money. People would not care about this. But it seems like even the numbers I saw, unconfirmed numbers I saw from Brufut, when you go to Kiang, they say, hey, Kiang, for the past decades, Kiang never had electricity. You think these things are effective? President Barrow went to Fatou a day before election and laid the foundation for a hospital, even though people are questioning how many number of beds they're claiming is there. But all these infrastructure development, even though they're not coming now, but they're just going there, people want development close to them. Is this also looking like it's effective in this election? Because
I want to agree it's effective for the president. Let's look at this. This is a government that had been struggling.
Yeah.
When it comes to electricity, it was erratic the whole 5 years.
Yeah.
Water shortage. Recently, we had fuel shortage in the country.
Yeah.
And all whatnot. Every commodity prices are skyrocketing. It's a problem. But then, I said this. I said, I am looking at the team that surrounds Barrow. And I am not ruling out the APRC element that are with Barrow, the likes of Fabakari and Co, Sidinjai and Co. I think they understand the politics of Jammeh. So recently, what he did was, hey, you know what? Let's start giving out food to the people. Let's start giving out mana to the people. Let's start laying foundation stones. Let it take 10, 20 years later for it to be finished. But let people see that we are bringing development to their doorsteps. Imagine Fatou having a hospital with 1,500 beds. Brikama is the closest to Fatou. You don't even have paracetamol at the hospital. But people are not interested in that. What people want to see is to see the president laying foundation stones, the president inaugurating bridges, the president this and that and that. I think that had really worked for the president. This is the kind of country we find ourselves in. People will point out things. This is what he did. This is what he did. This is what he did. You come with policies. Okay, we want to bring a program which will start reaping benefit in the next 5 years. We are not interested. We want things to happen now. We want to see our roads. Yes, it was just after the rainy season. You have so many crazy roads in the country. But you know what? They came and bring and grade everything off. So it was dusty, but people think it was okay for them. This is what happened in Brufut.
Well, I said, well, in Brufut, having come from Brufut, I think what you said there could have mattered a little bit. Now, in Brufut, the youth population had been struggling to, to catch on to a property that they badly wanted to as a football field.
Football field.
Yes.
Yep.
For many years they wanted prime land. Field.
Yes.
On the Jamme, it was, everybody knew, we all knew that it was a lost cause to fight for such kind of things on the Jamme because he himself had interest in those properties. But after he left, the youths saw an opportunity now to hold this government, what would I say, to hold them by the neck and said, all right, here you are. Especially when they saw Barrow beginning to have interest to contest, they said, okay, yeah, let's know how to deal with this man. All right, you want our votes? Look, we have been battling with the former regime and all other things to get this land as our football field. Yeah. You give it us, we guarantee you that we will deliver the youth support to you. And at the end, Barrow had to succumb. The area was supposed to be a tourism development area, but at the end of it, he agreed and said, okay, you could have it. In fact, I'm going to pay for all the legal processing for you to get this thing. That really had really helped him get sympathy from the youths. That worked. And of course the OIC roads. Brufut, Ghana Town, Brufut, Willinkama was part of the 20 roads that are designed to be part of the project. And it is no coincidence, of course, and no accident that he chose Brufut to launch these 10 roads, these 20 roads, because obviously he was eyeing also votes. So he brought two major, supposed projects that he knew will definitely not fail to entice the people of Brufut. And it seemed to have worked. It seemed to have worked. Now, that may be the reason, Brufut being a predominantly UDP area, that may be the reason why they have switched over to him. It's like, scratch my back, scratch my back. So, in that context, that might work. But since we have dealt with the outlook of UDP, how the UDP will be after this election defeat in the future, I think it's interesting we also talk about how will Barrow be, what kind of president will Barrow be in the next 5 years. Obviously, we saw that even in the last 5 years, he was getting bolder.
Yes.
He was graduating from the calmed, well-comported personality we all admired in him. He, very humble and less combative. But of course, towards the end of this term, we saw him maybe inspired or triggered by the tension of the elections, but we saw him getting bolder, attacking, or, going on the attack. So, with this confidence now that I have won the confidence of the Gambian people, will Barrow continue to be the tolerant, humble president we know him? Or is he now going to say, well, or will he be vindictive? So, well, now I know my enemies, like Jammeh. Now I know my enemies. So, is he going to be the president that is be for all, or would he carry on with the bruises and the wounds from the elections? Would that guide his thinking now? So we will have to see what kind of Barrow will this victory produce. It's going to be very important.
Very important.
Very important in the next 5 years.
I want to believe the legislative elections will determine who Barrow really would be. Him coming as a president, for me, is not enough. He will want to consolidate his strength on power by having so many parliamentarians into that National Assembly. Once he has a majority in there, for me, this is where we will start seeing the true Barrow. Now the question would be, who is the true Barrow? Is it that tolerant, cool, and absorbing Barrow, or the recent Barrow that we see firing and attacking, like you said? But I want to believe he will use all forces to make sure that he has that strength in the National Assembly, so that the NPP can also grow. Remember, it's a very new party, but he will be fighting to make the party the biggest party in the country. And that is only possible if he has a majority in the National Assembly also.
And that's where the challenge is for UDP, the National Assembly. Because you remember Barrow's last meeting, he said what NPP wants to be in the presidency, control the assembly and control all councils. Currently, that's what UDP is controlling councils, and but you know, normally, I mean, it's the incumbent most of the time. Our people, that's the way we vote. UDP is going to have to fight hard to get their representatives
to maintain them. Because the presidential election, that's why under the Jawara regime,
they do it together.
When the presidential elections was introduced in 1982, and again, in the interest of openness and fair play, presidential elections and National Assembly elections are held the same day. The same polling station, you go and vote for the presidential candidates, cross over here and vote for the parliamentaries.
If not, the incumbent.
Because
am no possibility dissoudre assemblée.
Dissolve. Assembly bi nek fini. Bi nek ni.
Est-ce que président bi am na possibilité man na ko
am na doole.
Waaye naka la ko defee def na ñetti weer rek pour ñu amaati élection ñeneenti weer kay.
ñeneenti weer. mais lu ñuy wax fii
loolu laa bëggoon a xam, parce que xam nga ñun am nañ possibilité boobu, président bi am na possibilité boobu Sénégal.
Waaw ok ñeenti weer rek a des ci parliamentary election. While you what we're talking about now is you understand now is for example the legislative elections you talk about. We know that presidential elections results outcome always influence National Assembly. You see, the Gambian voter thinks that the highest stake is in the president. If NPP controls State House, then there's no point opposing them in the parliamentary elections. So that can influence it. That is why in the past, I'm telling you, because of fairness and level playing ground, both elections are held on the same day. The same day, you go to this booth, elect your candidate for president, go to this booth, elect your candidate for parliamentary. It makes it competitive because somebody can vote for example, somebody can vote for Barrow in the presidency, but he doesn't like Barrow's choice in the parliamentary. He go and vote for somebody else in the parliamentary. So it makes it competitive and it makes it open and diverse. We don't have the system when Jammeh came. That first thing he did is, he knew, of course, that is going to really disturb him because he can lose a lot of parliamentary seats if the elections are held together. He knows that. All right, that's why he separated them. Now you have the presidential in December or October, and you have the parliamentary in January or in April. Because he knows once he's won the elections, parliamentary, he can easily have hours to influence them. So in the future, in fact, in the constitution that was rejected, that method has been brought back to have both elections on the same day, because it makes it really more open and more level field for both the parliamentarians and the presidents. We are now going to have presidents influencing using his influence, power, incumbency.
Yeah, because we've seen that. We've seen that in the past. Parliamentary elections.
Yeah.
I have always
President Barrow went out on a tour canvassing for UDP candidates.
I have always said that we missed the boat. The Gambia missed the boat to sanitize our political system when Barrow decided to run again.
Yeah.
That's where we missed the opportunity. And that is the only crime that people who are not necessarily UDP are still angry with him, because we preferred him to sanitize all these bad laws we are talking about and leave. But once he became to be interested, he found it uncomfortable to sanitize these regulations because they will not suit his ambition now. That is where Gambia missed to sanitize our politics. Of course, they will tell you, but he has a right as a Gambian to go. But then you look at the bigger picture and the need of your country at the time.
Yeah.
At the time, the need of the country was get the dictator out, clean and sweep everything, make the ground leveled, and you go. Imagine if Barrow was not in this election.
Yeah.
What kind of analysis we would have been doing today?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What kind of analysis would have been doing? It would have been a completely different election. If Barrow had stepped back and said, I'm not supporting anybody,
well,
I step aside.
Barrow isn't stepping back.
Imagine how kind of election would have been. But that would have given us the opportunity to be able to clear all these things we were. But once he became interested, he found it uncomfortable, for example, to back a new constitution. He wouldn't have cared if he wanted to go out. He wouldn't have cared whether the constitution starts now or tomorrow. He wouldn't have cared. He would have said, this is the next government's problem. And he would have set an example. The new government that came would have said, look, I can't go against this. These are the things the Gambian people love. So he would have set a precedent that nobody else will come to violate. But when he became interested, that's where we missed the opportunity to sanitize all this. So we may have to go still now with all these bad laws until when Barrow decides that, well, I have had enough. Well, probably now it's time to reform.
Wow.
Unless he had another mind. That is after the elections he had another one. But this is where we missed. Okay, we can all see it. Very instrumental in drafting the coalition agreement, said, look, our candidate, should he win, will step aside. One term, whether it's 3 years or something, but one term. Because that's the only way they think that the power of incumbency will not corrupt or influence this election that follows immediately after the transition. So we missed that opportunity. Of course, Mr. Barrow have every right to go on. But we should always ask the question, how would we have been if he had really obeyed and kept the promises? I think whatever elections, whatever victory he had, that question will still haunt him. Because obviously, that's where we missed the opportunity perhaps to get it. As for the UDP, well, they've missed a big opportunity when he split from them. No matter who was wrong, you would think that when he had stayed, if he had stayed with the UDP would have monopolized power by now.
Yeah.
Would have been. Imagine if the forces behind NPP were to be combined with the forces in UDP, who would have matched them? But it's unfortunately a missed opportunity for the UDP. It turned out to be, a personal clash between Dabo and Barrow.
Yeah.
And everybody in the country looks like, from the majority now, it looks like everybody's been dragged into that personal, clash.
Yeah.
Dabo against Barrow. Legi ñep ken sétatu développement fan mo am hôpital ban garaban non.
Yeah.
Li ñep sét moy Dabo ak Barrow. Ban la ci bëgg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lolu moy yow.
Loolu mooy lu xew fana lu ñoo def rek mooy ñu jël another break jël tuuti coffee break naan coffee comme jógaguñ fii Aliou Momar Ndiaye gis naa netaalam léegi si social media bi moom tam mu ngi xool ci kayit yi dafa mel ni paa bi moom moo ñu gën a dëjër sax moom si boppam so dinañ jël break buñ dellu see rek fekk AIC tam ñëw ñu gën a xool yeneen results yi ñëw so Rocky will take our break when we come back. We'll look at more results from the IEC. Yow demongul la de.
Dama bëgg daw suba damay liggéey. Yow da nga nelaw.
Ku la wone dama
suba man damay dem
nelaw ma de damay liggéey.
Damay dem.
Su président bu état kañ dañoo liggéey su dee président
xam naa ne élection bi lay continuer
kon ñun mënuñoo nelaw.
Man su ma nelawee élec suma kayit du génn élec.
Ma ne loolu la di loolu la sa kayit bi suba nga nelaw
kayit bi génne loolu de suba tey lañ koo liggéey.
Suba nga nelaw gars yi caam demul fenn de. Kon ñu jël this break buñ dellu see rek ñu gën a xool more results and then ñu gën a analyse results yi